Welcome to the Old Man of the Three Things with JJ Redick and the Dunker Spot, Nekias, Duncan, and Steve Jones. Fellas, what's going on this Monday morning?
Feeling good. I will see if that holds in the next 14 hours as we record on a Monday. Philly has one job to do. I'm going to need them to do that against Tampa, so we'll see.
Oh, okay. I'm feeling good, feeling great. I feel optimistic about the Eagles. How about that?
Okay.
Thanks for the friendly support here. Honestly, we're not an NFL podcast. Do they just clean house? What happens if they lose tonight and they end this season on this losing streak? They just clean house, everybody gets fired?
Bare minimum new coordinators.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that has to happen regardless of what happens the rest of the season.
Yeah, all right, we're an NBA podcast. We'll stick in our lane. All right, guys. First thing today, I want to check in on Wemby and Chet. You guys posed an interesting question to me yesterday. I think it's very clear, and I think you guys will agree with me on this. Chet Holmgren is the rookie of the year right now. Your question to me was, what would have to happen? What would Wemby have to do? How would the situation have to play out for Wemby to take over and actually win the rookie of the year? So where are we at with this? I'm going to start with you, Nekias.
I do agree with you. I think as of January 15th, I think Chet is the rookie of the year. I think what he's been able to do on both ends, the level of efficiency that he's been able to play with, he's doing so on a winning team. And it's not like he's just getting spoon-fed. Like Steve and I talked about it on the rookie report last week. The rate of unassisted baskets for Chet Holmgren has continued to rise as the season's gone on. The increased comfort as a driver, rather, what he's doing on these post-ups, taking these balls to break threes, his ability to grab a defensive rebound and push himself. It's not just him pick and roll spoon-fed by Shea and he just gets numbers on a good team. He's played a pretty large part figuratively and literally for what OKC's been able to do this year. But what Wemby is doing with a minutes restriction right now is insane to me. And the fact that the efficiency is also starting to rise with him, in addition to the holy crap plays that we see from him every night, he has defended at borderline, if not just a flat out all defense level for most of the year, honestly. And Steve and I talked about this throughout the year with him at the 4, the off-ball value that he was bringing, now at the 5 and navigating the drop as well as he is. I'm just wondering, in the box score numbers, you just look at points, rebounds, blocks, he has Chet beat, especially if you just filter for December 8th, which is the date that he shifted to full-time center in San Antonio versus starting with Zach Collins. That's what made the question jog my mind. I think these are the clear-cut top 2 unless someone gets hurt. What would have to shift for Wemby to overtake Chet? Because I think the box score number is going to be there. I wonder how much of an efficiency bump he needs, because I don't see the Spurs winning 20 of their next 22 or something to make a play-in push. So I just wonder how wild the box score numbers will have to get, how wild the efficiency will have to get, and if he actually makes an all-defense team, if that case becomes more prevalent nationally, would that get him over Chet with what he's doing so far?
Hey, Nekias, does 16, 12, and 10 in 21 minutes shift the needle for you at all?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
The man has Victor has 3 straight double-doubles, all in 25 minutes or less. For me, I think it's the fact that OKC is not only winning, but Chet's impact on their winning that makes it tough for Wembanyama. The tough part is, we talked about on the podcast, it feels like the Los Angeles Angels era for Wemby, to where he's putting up all these stats and all these great numbers, and it's wait, they lost again, which I don't think is necessarily his fault. I don't want to discredit him for that. But I think with Chet being able to knock down those threes, being able to finish in the restricted area, his cutting off ball, I don't think he gets enough credit for the feel there as far as the pressure he puts on defenders. He's a great fit for OKC, but you look at his ability to relocate, his ability to space, drive, the sequences of I'm going to pick and pop, I'm going to hit this 3 in transition, now I can pick and roll, now I'm going to drive past your closeout. And defensively, he fits right in with what they're doing. So I think you can see what Chet does every night. It's contributing to winning. I think that's probably what shifts him over Victor, unless is there a scenario that it could happen?
Here's a scenario. I couldn't believe this, and I know it's such a small sample size relative to the rest of the season, and there's a couple games in there against the Pistons and Hornets. I could not believe this. They shifted Trey Jones to the starting lineup. Finally. Hello. Finally, 5 games ago. In that stretch, they played the Bucks, the Cavs, 2 playoff teams, Pistons, Hornets, and the Bulls, who've been resurgent since Zach LaVine was out and Kobe White took over. They are 7th in offense, 10th in defense, and 6th in net. It's almost like when Trey Jones is on the floor, they're a functional basketball team. It's interesting. What if, here's a scenario. What if they started Trey Jones the rest of the year and they continued to be a functional basketball team? Because I think some of the efficiency stuff with Wemby versus Chet is the real talking point. And to me, it's not just the box score numbers. It ultimately, voters are smarter and smarter. It's not who is the leading point getter, who is the leading rebounder. Like what Chet is doing on a great basketball team as a rookie is just, it's phenomenal. And I'm trying to think, like, how many times have we seen a rookie this efficient on a top 5 basketball team? And not just efficient, productive. Like these are real counting stats. OKC's number 3 on defense, number 4 on offense. Chet defensively, like I'm talking about Wemby in a second. Chet defensively has been so good, better than I could have imagined. And I think the impact on winning, as long as OKC continues to win, I don't care what Wemby does. I think Chet's going to win this thing. You brought up December 8th. 14 games for Wemby, 26 minutes a game. He's averaging 20 points, 11 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 3.8 blocks. For the year, he's averaging 4.2 stocks per game. Like, both these guys are just monsters. But I think ultimately, in this scenario, Trey Jones has to continue to start. Hello. And Wemby, I think the efficiency has to go way up, and they've got to win games. Let's say I'll throw out this hypothetical. Let's say they're essentially 40% win percentage the rest of the year. And OKC, which I don't think is going to happen because they're so fucking good, OKC is at like 40% win percentage the rest of the year and gets the 6th seed. Okay, there's a scenario. Is that going to happen? I don't think so.
Yeah, you'd have to see a pretty drastic drop from OKC. Or again, since we have the games played minimum, like that could get wonky. But obviously, you don't hope for any of that. So I guess for me, like, I wonder what Chet would have to do. Like, because Steven, I talked about him seeing some more switches and OKC just trying to put more size on Shea and trying to neutralize that pick and roll pairing, which very quickly, just got a quick chuckle while I was looking this up. The Shea Chet pick and roll and the Trey Jones, Victor Wembanyama pick and roll both at around 1.07 points per possession. So that's a funny one. But like, if you see more switches, you neutralize some of the offensive stuff with Chet. Like, do you see enough of a dip there? And like, Wemby has the louder, not only the higher box score numbers, but the louder stuff offensively. Like, does that start to shift it in the mind of some voters with the way the season closes out? Like, maybe that's a pathway.
I think for me with OKC, it's hard because you can't necessarily pin them down with one thing. Even going beyond Chet, that's been one of the most fun things of watching them is that they adjust to what you're trying to do defensively. And you look at OKC, they clear wings to make sure they have space for these drives. They start their screeners in the corner, including Chet, which is just an unnatural angle for defenses to like guard. It turns into a step up almost every time. So I just feel like they're a little bit too far. I don't want to say too far ahead because then you end up sounding like light years ahead, and I don't want to do that today. But
we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
But I don't think you can pin him down and pin them down to the degree where it's like, okay, I don't think Chet's having that same impact. I think you're going to feel that all year long, and that's a credit to him and the Thunder.
Okay, I like it. Phoenix Suns won the game last night against a very depleted Portland Trailblazers team. They currently are in 8th place at 21-18, just a game back in the loss column of 7th and 2 games back of 5th and 6th with New Orleans and Sac being tied there. Lot of talk about Devin Booker essentially being a little overextended at times as the primary ball handler. Do the Suns need a point guard? And better question, can they even get a functional point guard at this point with their just lack of assets and really lack of contracts to send out?
Nekias, you know how I feel, so I'm letting you go first.
All right, fair enough. I think for me, like, I can't get to the Phoenix needs a point guard point, at least not yet. Like, I do understand the clamoring for one, since you do want to take a little bit of pressure off of Bradley Beal. Well, you want to take some pressure off of him too, but you want to take some pressure off of Devin Booker with all he's been asked to do on ball, like career high in pick and roll usage, career high in assist. The off-ball screen usage for him has dropped drastically from last year, from the past couple of years. So you want to see more of a shift, if for no other reason than just to kind of recalibrate what his shot profile is. So, like, I get it. I'm also with JJ, because I think this becomes a general question of what assets do you have to get a point guard? And then within the context of what Phoenix is doing, is there a point guard on the market that you have the assets to acquire that is also better than / more valuable than what Grayson Allen has provided you as a shooter?
Boom.
And that's a really tough needle to thread, because Grayson Allen has been shooting the absolute leather off of the ball. And like something that I brought up early in this year, like I was never on the full get a point guard train. My thought was more, okay, Phoenix is going to have someone that can defend point guards. And that's where we talked about the fifth starter. What is Josh Okogie going to look like with that group, et cetera? Again, this has turned into Grayson Allen because of how well he's played. But I was more so focused on, okay, who can defend some of these guards? So like Beal or Booker wouldn't have to. And so unless you can find a guy that can knock down shots and also defend those type, like do you try to steal Javon Carter out of Chicago? Like, I don't think so. I don't think that really moves the needle for you. And it's not like Javon has been setting the world on fire like he did the second half of last year anyway. I don't think you go there. I think for me, more than let's get a point guard in the room, let's see the big three play together. Per cleaning the glass is 307 possessions with Bill, Booker, and Durant on the floor, which is somehow less than the Miami trio of Hero, Butler, Bam, and Jimmy hasn't played since Thanksgiving, it feels like. And then beyond that, like maybe you shift more of the stuff to Bradley Beal. If you want to get Devin Booker off the ball more, Bradley Beal still remains probably the driver with the most juice among those three, even though Booker's obviously very good at it. Maybe that's a way to get Beal involved and also get Booker and KD off ball. You can create some more catch and shoot opportunities for those guys. That's where my mind goes first. I don't know if Tyus Jones like fixes the Suns as good as he is.
I don't think that the Suns need a point guard. Number one, that Beal, Booker, Allen, Durant, Nurk lineup has 132.9 offensive rating. Why? What are we doing? Number one, what are we doing? What is this point guard going to run? Is it going to change the Suns' context? Did we not just see a playoff series where the Denver Nuggets said, hey, Chris Paul, while you're out here, here's this drop defense. You don't get to make any plays, buddy. How does this change the Suns? I wanted to ask JJ what he thinks a traditional point guard is in today's NBA, but then Nekias' rant unlocked something in my brain. It's less about needing a pure point guard, and it's more about the balance of what they run on offense, for me at least. You have Devin Booker, you have Kevin Durant, you have Bradley Beal, you have pressure points. You can use them in a variety of ways. That's what Phoenix has to do. They've got to mix in the pin downs. They've got to mix in the elbow action. They've got to make sure they have a balance of movement. When they get in trouble is when they go pure pick and roll or pure ISO, and now you need the shot making to hit. And, you go back to a game like the Suns played the Clippers. The Suns started out aggressive, 2 on the ball against Devin Booker. And eventually said, you know what? Let's just do drop. Let's just drop back. Here's your shot. Now, this is a team that can take and make a bunch of them, but their best actions are when they have these pressure points that move. Devin Booker at half court, Bradley Beal at half court, getting a quick pin down. You try and deny. I'm going the other way. Now I can go a handoff. Nurk can go either way. One side has Bradley Beal. The other side might have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. They have to generate pressure in waves. If they don't have the movement, that team looks very different.
A lot of talk about their offense, which is interesting to me. It really is interesting. And this is a team that, Devin Booker missed some time. Bradley Beal obviously missed some time. They're 11th right now for the season in offense, and they're 0.9 away from essentially being a top 7 or top 8 offense. I keep saying I want to see 20 games, 25 games with the big three before I really make a proclamation about what I think the Suns are as a team, right? We know what they did in the offseason. We knew there was going to be some growing pains. Here's the thing, though. The early returns with the big three are fucking great. They're great. These guys have been on the court for 150 minutes together. They've got 125 offensive rating and 110 defensive rating. That's pretty fucking good. That's pretty fucking good. I think Nekias' point is an important one, which is the trade-off as it stands with their current roster, the trade-off when you get to the playoffs of having a Josh Okogie out there guarding a Jamal Murray, having a Josh Okogie out there guarding De'Aaron Fox. What is the trade-off to your offense? Because if you're asking Grayson Allen to do that, if you're asking Booker to do that even, that can be very taxing for Booker in a playoff series. I think De'Aaron Fox, right, Jamal Murray, like the amount of movement and dribble handoffs these guys, like that's a mismatch for Grayson Allen. He competes defensively, but that's a mismatch. I think the bigger question is if they do get another player, because I'm not trading Grayson Allen, and that's really the only contract, right? Metu's been good at times, but you're not going to trade Nurkic. So everybody else is on a minimum. There's not really options. So I think the defensive part to me, because I think they're further away defensively than they are offensively. The defensive part to me, what is the trade-off when we get into the playoffs with different matchups of having a Josh Okogie out there versus 32 minutes of Grayson Allen in the playoff series? That's the question mark to me. I want to touch on Steve's question because you kind of threw that in there and then you didn't really allow me to talk. What is a traditional point guard? Let's address this. What is a traditional point guard in today's NBA? What does that even mean? Because to me, it's a dying breed. It's a dying breed. And also, like, we just had Franz Wagner on the pod last night. We were talking about this with him. It's like, there's certainly still smaller guards that are the primary half-court facilitators. But we're seeing over and over now in today's NBA, the primary ball handlers are big wings. Like, who's initiating the offense for the Boston Celtics? Who really is? When you get down to it, who is it? It's Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, right? It's LeBron James. It's Kawhi Leonard. That's the NBA. It's Franz Wagner for the Orlando Magic. It's Paolo Banchero for the Orlando Magic. It's big players. So this old notion of like, we need a smaller guard to bring the ball up and get guys into actions. It's just not like, now there's the Trae Youngs of the world. There's the Donovan Mitchells and the Darius Garlands. Like, I get all that. Like, those guys are not traditional point guards. Like, Chris Paul's the last guy. He's the last guy. Rondo. Like, these guys, like, who else is there? Who am I missing? Tyus Jones? Okay, Tyus Jones. Is Tyus Jones going to move the needle and get you to a championship? No. That's not what a point guard is anymore. That's not what a point guard. There's not even really positions. It's like you have your ball handler, you have your off-ball guys, you have your big. There you go. Who the fuck cares what a point guard is? Thoughts?
That's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for right there. I'll ask one question. So is Mike Conley now the best traditional point guard?
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah. I think we were talking about this privately. I don't know if it was with you guys. We were talking about this privately a month ago. I think it might have been with Legs, and Mike Conley came up. That's a good one. I like that. And Mike, by the way, Mike Conley, think about this. Mike Conley, when he was in Memphis, functioned as a traditional point guard, I think, when he could have just averaged 25 or 26 a game. Like, he almost did himself a disservice. Now, He signed at one point the biggest contract in NBA history. So it's not like the guy like missed out on some bags. But in terms of like counting stats and legacy and all-star appearances, like that guy could have been a 25-7 guy. Now they played at a very slow pace and they posted Gasol and Randolph and all that stuff, and they had Tony Allen on the floor to fuck up their spacing. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like he could have been like a Donovan Mitchell or like a Trae Young. There's no reason to think that Mike Conley in his prime couldn't have averaged 25 plus points a game.
Very true. That's very true. I'd just say, just very quickly on the Phoenix ordeal, just bouncing off something that Steve said about them finding the blend of what they're trying to run. Just a general, I would like to see them run some things with juice. That would be cool. I think you really feel that in the fourth quarters, it kind of blends into like the overall, I want to see this group play together sport. Because once they get into some of the staggered, okay, it's KD, Bill plus bench guys that haven't really played a ton because Bill's missed a bunch of time and stuff like that. You kind of see some of the pauses and the record scratches. Like opening possession of the Portland game, fourth quarter last night. Bradley Beal walks the ball up the floor as Chimezie Metu screening for KD to get him to the opposite wing. Entry to Chimezie Metu. Beal screens for KD. KD comes off a handoff. By the time KD gets the ball and turns around, there's 11 on the shot clock. And I'm just like, what are we trying to get to here? And then even as Portland got into trying to double KD or doubling Bradley Beal when they would get their touches before Devin Booker came back in, it's double team, a guy on the opposite wing. Okay, now I'll flash to the middle, but it's taking forever to kind of diagnose. I should be the one to flash. And if he flashes, then the guy over here is going to go deeper in the corner. He's going to cut. It's just little stuff like that they don't really have down yet. And I wonder as they get to play more together, if those kind of things become a little bit quicker. Like as I was looking this up earlier this morning, Phoenix, I think second slowest fourth quarter team in terms of average seconds per possession. And lo and behold, they have the worst fourth quarter net rating in the league right now. Like, I think that's part of it. They're trying to figure out how to play with each other. So
yeah.
Let's give them some time.
I agree. That's good stuff. Love that pace thing in the fourth quarter. Cause Tommy and I talked about this last week on the podcast intro, how bad they've been in the fourth quarter. And that's interesting to note. They slow it down. All right. We've got one last question. One last thing for today, and that is on the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors, two teams with high expectations coming into the season. They are sitting at 11th and 12th. Utah, playing phenomenal basketball, had their game Wednesday night where they blew out Denver, 14-4 over their last 18 since they inserted Colin Sexton into the starting lineup. Which teams, if you were betting, which teams do you think have probably the I don't want to say the best because that sounds horrible, but which teams have the greatest chance of dropping and allowing the Lakers and the Warriors into at least the play-in? Subsequently, are we sure that either of these teams are actually going to be good at any point in the season?
I think I would probably circle Houston right now. I'm probably going to go Houston right now. One, I don't know how well what they do travels. Like, obviously, 4-13 on the road is not a great thing. I'm a little concerned about their tempo in the half court, especially as the teams get more film on them. It's slow and methodical for a reason, but can you get to your secondary options? Can you get to your third options? If a team feels comfortable switching Fred VanVleet, can they double Şengün? Like, do they have the counters necessary offensively to help that defensive growth keep having the same impact? I think the fact that Utah is just so good at home, like obviously they've been a lot better with this lineup that they've had, with Sexton, with Dunn, with Fontecchio, with Collins, with Markin, and 8-1 as starters. And they have that home court advantage. You know, I joked with Nekias because he was like, hey, they're about to be in the play-in. And I was like, no, they got this big road trip. And they won all of them almost. So and go into a 6-game homestand. So that's where it's like, okay, Utah can kind of make up some ground, create some distance that they might need. So I might just point to Houston right now, just because I'm not sure how much of that can stick throughout the season. Great stuff, but I'm a little concerned.
I think, well, one, I'm with you on the Houston part. It's probably being the prime candidate to slip because of the road struggles. I was looking up their road stuff, bottom third in the league in both offensive and defensive rating in their road games this year. So to your travel point, it just hasn't really happened. And then just kind of eyeing, I don't really want to have the full Jalen Green conversation because I feel like that's just gone too far. in the wrong direction and being extremely harsh with him. But like, I think he is an important piece to how successful Houston's going to be, with the shift to him being more off ball. Like, what is the shooting? Where is the shooting going to land for him? How quick are the decisions being made when he does have the ball? What kind of awareness does he showcase defensively off the ball? Like, we've seen incremental growth there, but I think people have expected a larger leap from him than what we've seen so far this year. And so, to Steve's pace point offensively, if you are walking into your stuff and teams are kind of keyed into what you're running, and now you're running into more late clock things where you need Fred VanVleet to save you, or Alperen Şengün to save you, or Jalen Green to save you, it's not the best formula. Outside of Houston, I'm kind of torn between Utah and Phoenix. Like, I think Phoenix is a better team, but because they are so top heavy, like, they are just a natural one injury away pick with that kind of thing. And considering they're still trying to work out what the defense is, to JJ point, and the fourth quarter woes that they've had, like, it wouldn't surprise me if they have an ankle tweak somewhere, or if it's just, we're just a middling team in the fourth quarter and we just play 500 ball the rest of the way and the Lakers or Warriors find it. Like, it could just be, they're still fine, but this team has just been better. With Utah, like, there's, not only have they been winning a bunch of games, you mentioned the road success as of late, there really isn't anything to, like, poke it. They've just been really good schematically. Like, surprisingly, I've enjoyed the defense and the myriad of zones that they've been throwing out and everything they're doing there. Offensively, I love the way they space their players. They'll have Walker Kessler at the wing. They flow into a whole bunch of different stuff. And then you look at some of the stats, like, okay, they're on this win streak. The defense has been good. Surely they're getting some three-point luck. Over the last 15 games, they're 15th in three-point percentage, and opponents are actually knocking down 38.5% of their threes against Utah over the last 15. So the fact that they're kind of losing the three-point luck and they're still effectively like a top 10 defense over the last 15, it's not like you can point to some obvious regression point with Utah either. Like, they just seem firmly good.
That was the thing that really stood out as I was prepping for that game. So I had them on Wednesday, and going into that game, they were 11-4 in their last 15. And for the season, they hadn't shot it well from three. And in that 15-game stretch, they hadn't shot it well from three. I think the thing that stood out to me the most, and I had watched a number of their games, but being there in person, I love the way they play offense, because it's like the priority of spacing with them. There's no one in the paint ever, unless it's somebody driving or John Collins on a roll, right? And as soon as he rolls, if he doesn't get the ball, he spaces back out. So it's just constant drive and kick. And during this stretch, I think they're top 5 in the league in points in the paint. So they're making it up there. Defensively, you know, it was interesting because I joked on the broadcast. I called Will Hardy a liar. He told us before the game he was going to mix up coverages on Jokic, right? You can't give great players the same coverage over and over. And they get out to that lead in the game, and they're like, nah, fuck it. We're just going to let Jokic play one-on-one. And you know, Denver couldn't get anything going from three-point range till late in the game. They hit some threes when the starters were out. And so, like, schematically, defensively, they mix up things. They go to that zone. Sexton's been awesome. Like, they're playing with an identity, and that's the thing for me. We talk about it all the time. That's the thing for me where I'm like, all right, I believe in this basketball team. It's the same thing with the Magic. Like, the Magic are going to have some nights where they don't look good offensively, but they have an identity on the defensive end. Starts with Jalen Suggs, but I trust that team that night to night they're gonna look like a functional basketball team. Right now, with the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers, what is their identity? What is it? And you saw the other night, you know, I'm calling the game on Wednesday, and they get blown out. Golden State gets blown out at home against the New Orleans Pelicans, and Steve Kerr's talking about they've lost their belief, they've lost their spirit, they've lost their confidence. I cannot believe these numbers. I cannot believe these numbers. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, both around 2.7, minus 2.7, minus 2.8 net rating. Looney at minus 3.9. Draymond Green, I know he's missed a ton of time, minus 6.7. Andrew Wiggins, minus 9.8. They came into the season thinking their starting group, which was great last year, was like a staple. Those guys have lost their minutes. We're halfway through the season. We're halfway through the season. I cannot believe those numbers. Like, Steph Curry is losing his minutes this year. What is the identity of this team? What is the identity? With the Lakers, look, I think at times they can make up for their lack of three-point shooting because the amount of pressure they put on the paint. They're going to score at the rim. Anthony Davis and LeBron James are going to score at the rim. They're not going to foul. They're going to get to the free throw line at a decent rate relative to NBA standards today. Again, teams don't shoot a lot of free throws anymore, despite all the chatter on Twitter. I think they're sixth in free throw attempts per game, but they don't foul. So they make up for some of that lack of shooting there. But they haven't been a good defensive team, right? They're 14th in defense. They're 23rd in offense. We're halfway through the season. What is the identity of these teams? So both of you brought up Houston, and I'm like, well, Houston has an identity. Steve, I totally agree with all the stuff you're saying. They have an identity. If you're Darvin Ham, if you're Steve Kerr, like, what is our identity and what do I want our identity to be? Because we don't have one right now. And we're halfway through the season. I'm such a believer in LeBron James and Steph Curry's greatness that there's always a chance these guys are going to figure it out. I think the Lakers' record through this number of games is the same as it was last season. They were in the Western Conference Finals. I'm not counting them out, but I am concerned, and I think it's fair to be concerned.
And I think to your point, like, this is why I'm glad you asked which team would we pick, and then also, do we have faith that the Lakers and Warriors could actually do it? Because I think to that point, it's hard to point to things with either of these teams, really. Because I think Steph, on balance, has been tremendous this year, but he's also in the midst of like this shooting slump now. On top of the multiple lineup changes, waves on wildly at Draymond. I think he's back later today as we record on Monday morning, so cool. And so it just feels so topsy-turvy with them. Like, it's both impressive and also a bit of an indictment the way that Golden State's bench has saved them this year. Because you circle back to the offseason, okay, we're trading for Chris Paul. We want to stabilize the bench because we always lose the Steph minutes. And for it to be flipped this year is weird. Like, congrats, you achieved your goal, but also now this other thing under the hood is broken. And so, like, if you're an optimist, you look at the longer sample of what those starters have been once Draymond comes back, and it's like, okay, surely there's a switch that can be flipped for the next 2-3 months. And then you hope the bench continues to be good, even if it isn't as good as it's been so far this year. And then you just have a good basketball team. Like, I think I'm out on the Warriors and Lakers as like championship contenders for sure. And if I end up being wrong on that, I'll just take a massive L. But like through January, I'm definitely out on that front. Can they still make the playoffs / play in? Like, I think they can. Like, I think even with the Lakers defense slipping, like, it is still with AD and LeBron on the floor, like, they still defend at a high level.
Yes.
And I think that is enough of a foundation to where they can push and run and then try to figure out some stuff. And as I'm sure the Lakers will make a move before the deadline and we can see where they're at. But yeah, it doesn't look great right now.
Well, actually, JJ, I had a question for you. As a player, do you feel when you're losing your identity? Or do you have the belief that, hey, we're just this close away? Like, if you're the Lakers, if we can just clean up our defense, we have a clear path. If you're the Warriors, hey, if we can just clean up our defense, or maybe we can get Steph and Clay going, we have a path. Do you ever feel that where you have that success and you know what you can be or what you can do and you're just not doing it? What does that feel like?
Feels like you're on a wooden raft looking for land and you're hoping nobody falls overboard and the group splinters. That's what it feels like. You feel lost. Because there were times, I should say, in my career where you're in a tough stretch. You know, I wasn't on bad teams. I was on a couple bad teams for stretches, but even with the Orlando Magic in 2012, 2013, I still felt like we had somewhat of an identity. Now, defensively, we were not good, and our offensive rating wasn't good, but like we played a certain way night to night that made it tough for teams to guard us. There was a lot of movement. There was a lot of cutting. We had Josh McRoberts, Gustavo Ayon, and Nick Vucevic as our bigs. So, like, we had passing bigs. So, like, it still felt fun to play on that team. There were some good Orlando teams when I was with Stan, where I remember specifically, like, what is our identity right now? Because we weren't as elite defensively, and the league had caught up to the spread pick and roll. You know, I remember, dude, we played a game. We played spread pick and roll every play, essentially. We played a game at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we had Rashard Lewis and Ryan Anderson as our four men. And these guys shot, for at the time, a ton of threes, right? It did not matter where Ryan Anderson and Rashard Lewis were on the basketball floor. They could have been at the top of the fucking key. Whoever was guarding him would tag Dwight Howard. And these guys just shot set wide open threes. Now, eventually, you know, the league caught up. People started switching. People got creative with their schemes. People started playing drop, didn't allow Dwight to get behind. And we lost that identity. And I remember multiple times in those last year or two with Stan, where I would go back to the coach's cabin and we would just talk about the offense. Like, what is our identity offensively? And it was hard to figure out. And you feel like our group didn't splinter, but like you feel lost, man. You feel lost as a player. So that's why I say I'm a believer in teams that have that identity. There's some really good teams. Like, I think Philly, Boston, OKC, Denver for sure. Like, these teams, they know what they are defensively. They know what they are offensively. They're really good. Some other good teams too. Like Minnesota's good. I get it. Like, when you are the Lakers or the Warriors and you're this far into the season and you're asking yourself, how can we win night to night? Like, how can we win? That's troubling. That's troubling. It's a great question, Steve. Guys, we went way over time. I hadn't seen you literally since the day after Christmas, so it's always good to catch up with you guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. All right, this has been another episode of The Old Man of the Three Things with the Dunker Spot. Caius Duncan and Steve Jones. Appreciate you guys. Fly Birds.